The shout cut through the cabin like a slammed door. That man should not be sitting here. Heads snapped up, breath caught. A ripple of silence spread from the bulkhead to the last row of first class as a uniformed gate agent froze mid-step, one hand still on the overhead bin. The plane had not pushed back. The door was still open. The moment was raw exposed before rules could soften it. In seat 1D sat a black man in his early 60s, tall even while seated, shoulders broad, but held low as if trained not to take space. His jacket was plain dark wool, worn thin at the elbows. No logos, no flash. His hands rested on his knees, fingers still nails trimmed. The skin on his knuckles told a story of heat and friction. Not street fights. Burn scars do not lie if you know how to read them. The woman who had spoken stood in the aisle, early 50s, white hair set hard and perfect, the kind of composure that had never been tested by anything it could not purchase. Her carry-on blocked the row behind her. Her mouth tightened, then curved into a smile that carried more threat than warmth. "I asked for security," she said. Voice steady, rehearsed. "I do not feel safe." A flight attendant named Claire hesitated. You could see it in her eyes. She had heard this tone before. She had learned how to respond without escalating. "Ma'am," she said, gentle but firm. "Everyone here has a valid boarding pass." "That is not the point," the woman said. She pointed without looking like the conclusion had already been reached. "He moved when I walked past. He stared. I know what that means." The man in 1D did not look up. He inhaled slowly through his nose. The cabin smelled of leather and coffee and that faint metallic tang of an aircraft that had slept in the cold. Outside, engines idled low and patient. Time pressed in. 2 rows back, an older couple exchanged a glance. The husband leaned closer to his wife. He didn't move. He whispered. She nodded, lips pressed thin. Across the aisle, a man in a navy blazer lifted his phone, then thought better of it and lowered it again. Shame coloring his cheeks, Claire shifted her weight. "Sir," she said. Turning to the man in 1D, "Would you mind making eye contact with me for a moment?" He did then. His eyes were dark, steady, not defensive. There was no challenge in them, just presence. "Of course," he said. His voice was low, unhurried. "How can I help?" The woman flinched, as if struck. "There," she said. "You hear that tone? That is aggression." Claire felt the air thicken. She knew the rule book. She knew the words that were coming next if she let this spiral. She pressed her thumb into the edge of her tablet, grounding herself. "Ma'am, I need you to lower your voice." "I am a taxpayer," the woman said. "I am a donor to this airline's foundation. I am not spending 4 figures to be intimidated." The man in 1D closed his eyes for a beat. When he opened them, he spoke to Claire, not to the woman. "If it helps," he said, "I can move to another seat." The sentence landed wrong. Too calm, too reasonable. The woman seized it. "You see, he knows he doesn't belong." A murmur rolled forward. Someone exhaled sharply. Claire's jaw set. "Sir, please remain seated," she said, more sharply than intended. "Ma'am, I am asking you again to step back into your row." The woman did not move. She straightened shoulders back. "Call airport police," she said. "Now!" The words carried weight, the kind that bent policy. Claire felt it in her chest. She turned toward the galley, caught the eye of the purser, a woman named Denise with steel-grey hair and a reputation for never losing control. Denise nodded once. The call was already being made. From the cockpit doorway, unseen by most, the captain paused. He had been reviewing the load sheet. He had heard the raised voice, the phrase that never belonged on an airplane unless it was about fire or smoke. He stepped closer just enough to see down the aisle. He saw the woman standing. He saw Claire's posture, the tension in her shoulders. He saw the man in 1D. The captain stopped breathing for a half-second. The world narrowed. The lines in that man's hands. The way he sat. The angle of his head, like he was listening for something that never came. The captain felt the old heat rise behind his eyes, the memory of a desert sun and the smell of fuel. Behind the woman, a young gate agent tried to squeeze past with a stack of paperwork, and failed. The aisle clogged. The delay stretched. A voice crackled over the intercom, asking for a status update. Denise replied without looking away from the scene, her tone clipped. "We are resolving a passenger issue." The woman laughed, short and sharp. "Of course you are." Airport police arrived quickly. They always did when the word safety was invoked. 2 officers, one younger, one older, both careful not to touch anything. The younger officer spoke first. "Who called?" The woman raised her hand, triumphant. "I did. That man threatened me." Every eye swung back to 1D. The man stood slowly, palms open, movements precise. He had learned long ago how to move when authority entered a room. "Officer," he said, "I did not threaten anyone." The younger officer's gaze flicked to the older one. The older officer watched the man's hands, then his face. He saw the scars. He saw the calm. He smelled the lie before it was named. "Sir," he said, "we need you to remain seated." The man nodded and sat. The seatbelt clicked. A small sound, loud in the quiet. The woman leaned toward the officers. "He lunged," she said. "I felt it. He has something in his pocket." "That is enough," Denise said, stepping forward. Her voice cut clean. "We will not accuse without cause." The woman rounded on her. "Do you know who I am?" Denise met her stare. "I know where you are," she said. "And I know the rules." The captain stepped into the aisle then. No announcement, no theatrics, just presence. He walked past the officers, past Denise, until he stood in front of 1D. The plane seemed to tilt toward him, listening. "Sir," the captain said quietly, "would you look at me?" The man did. Recognition sparked, small but unmistakable. A corner of his mouth lifted, then fell. "Captain," he said. The captain straightened. He did not raise his voice. He did not smile. He brought his heels together and lifted his hand in a clean, practiced motion. A salute, sharp as a bell. The cabin inhaled as one. The woman's mouth opened. No sound came out. The captain held the salute for a breath longer than necessary. Then he lowered his hand and turned eyes hard, now not at the man in 1D, but at the woman in the aisle. "Ma'am," He said this aircraft will not move until you return to your seat. The younger officer blinked. The older officer's posture changed respect, settling into his bones. Denise felt the shift like weather. "What is this?" the woman demanded. Her voice cracked. "Who is he?" The captain looked back at the man in 1D. There was history there, heavy and unresolved. That he said is not your concern. Your behavior is. Outside, the jet bridge door closed. Inside, the balance of the room had changed. The first-class cabin was no longer about money or seats. It was about something older and harder. Judgment. Memory. The kind of truth that does not ask permission before it enters. And somewhere between the idle engines and the held breath, the story tilted toward its first fracture, the one that would not be smoothed over by apologies or upgrades. The man in 1D sat still, eyes forward, carrying a weight no one else in the room had earned the right to name. The salute did not end the conflict. It froze it in place, suspended like a held breath that refused to release. The woman in the aisle felt it before she understood it. The way the room stopped centering her. The way authority shifted without asking her permission. "What is this?" she said again, louder now. Brittle. "Is this some kind of stunt?" No one answered immediately. The captain turned away from her and spoke to the officers instead. His voice was calm, professional, but there was iron underneath it. "Gentlemen, thank you for responding. There is no threat on this aircraft. There is a disturbance. I will handle it." The younger officer hesitated. "Captain, we have an allegation. You have a claim," the captain cut in. "And you have observed behavior. You have not observed a crime." The older officer nodded slowly. He had seen this before. Not this exact shape, but this weight. He stepped back half a pace. "We'll stand by," he said. The woman's face flushed. "You can't just dismiss me," she snapped. "I reported a safety issue." "You reported discomfort," Denise said quietly. She had moved to the captain's side without thinking. "Those are not the same thing." The woman swung on her. "I want your name." "You already have it," Denise replied. "It's on your boarding pass, just like everyone else's." A low murmur rippled through the cabin. Someone cleared their throat. Someone else exhaled long and shaky. The older couple, 2 rows back, held hands now knuckles white. The man in the navy blazer lifted his phone again, steadier this time, framing not the man in 1 had, but the woman blocking the aisle. The man in 1D felt the attention shift, like a tide pulling away from his feet. He hated it. He had learned to survive by being unseen, by letting noise burn itself out while he stayed still. He glanced at the captain just briefly, a warning in his eyes. "Do not do this here." The captain saw it and ignored it. He had lived too long with regret to stop now. "Ma'am," he said to the woman, "you will take your seat, and if I don't, then you will be removed for failure to comply with crew instructions." Her laugh cracked. "You think you can remove me?" "My husband sits on the advisory board for this airline." The word advisory hung there, swollen with implication. Denise felt her stomach drop. She had seen this move too. The threat that wore a smile. The promise that consequences would come later, quietly in email threads and closed rooms. The captain did not blink. "Then he will be hearing from me," he said. "Directly." The woman stared at him, recalculating. Her eyes flicked to the officers, searching for alliance. They did not move. She looked at the passengers, at the phones, at the faces no longer willing to look away. Something in her posture faltered. Not collapse. Adjustment. "Fine," she said too quickly. "I will sit. But I am filing a report." "You are welcome to the captain," said. She shoved her bag into the overhead bin with unnecessary force and slid into her seat. Shoulders rigid. The aisle cleared. The air did not. Denise exhaled and leaned toward the captain. "Do you want me to? I want you to document everything he said. Every word. Every timestamp." She nodded and stepped back, fingers already moving. The captain turned to the man in 1D. His voice softened just a fraction. "Sir," he said, "are you all right?" The man considered the question. He had been asked it in desert. Deserts and hospitals and rooms that smelled like bleach. He knew the answer people wanted. He chose honesty instead. "I will be," he said. The captain nodded once. That was enough. He returned to the cockpit without ceremony. The door closed. The engines spooled deeper now. The plane began to move. For a few minutes no one spoke. The aircraft turned onto the taxiway, the city sliding past the windows in grey streaks. The woman stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. Her hands trembled just slightly as she adjusted her seatbelt. She did not notice the camera trained on her, from 3 rows back, the red light blinking. The man in 1D stared at the safety card in the seat pocket, unreadable. His pulse slowed. He had expected worse. He always did. Expectation was armor. Claire approached with a glass of water. Her hands shook as she set it down. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He looked up at her, then really looked. She was young. Younger than his daughter would have been. Her eyes were wet with anger, not fear. "You did your job," he said. "That matters." She swallowed and nodded, then moved on. The climb was smooth. The seatbelt sign chimed off. The cabin loosened tension, unraveling into quiet conversations and the rustle of newspapers. The man in the navy blazer lowered his phone, having captured enough. He sent the video to someone with a single line of text. "You need to see this." 2 rows ahead, the woman leaned toward her seatmate, a man who had not spoken since boarding. "Did you see that?" she whispered. "Unbelievable." He did not respond. He stared out the window, jaw set. She leaned back, affronted. In the cockpit, the captain flew by instinct. His hands remembered the yoke. His mind did not. It was back in a different machine, the world on fire. He had not planned the salute. It had risen out of him like a reflex, older than reason. He wondered what it had cost the man in 1D. He wondered what it had cost him to wait this long. He tapped the intercom and hesitated. Then he released it. Not yet. An hour into the flight, Denise made her rounds. She stopped at 1D. "Sir," she said quietly, "would you be willing to give a statement after landing?" He considered. He thought of rooms where statements became weapons. He thought of the phones. He nodded. "Yes," he said. "But not here." "Of course," she said. Across the aisle the woman watched, eyes narrowed. She leaned forward and spoke to Denise, loud enough to be heard. "I want it noted that I was threatened." Denise met her gaze. "It is noted that you felt threatened," she said. "It is also noted that no threat was observed." The woman's lips thinned. "You're all making a mistake," perhaps Denise said. "But it will be our mistake." The woman leaned back, fuming. Her phone buzzed. A message from her husband. "Are you airborne?" She typed back with sharp taps. "There was an incident. I will explain." The reply came quickly. "Explain now." She hesitated, then typed, "A man in first class." The captain took his side. 3 dots appeared, then stopped, then appeared again. Who was the man? She glanced toward 1D. She did not know. She typed, "I don't know his name. Some veteran, apparently." The dots vanished. A long pause followed. In the cabin, the man in 1D closed his eyes. He could feel the altitude in his joints, the old ache waking. He breathed through it. He thought of the appointment waiting on the other end of this flight, of the consent forms already signed, of the young voice on the phone weeks ago cracking with hope and fear. He had not asked the name. He had asked the age. The plane leveled off. Coffee was served. Time resumed its forward motion. Then the intercom chimed. "Ladies and gentlemen," the captain said, voice steady filling the cabin. "This is your captain speaking. We appreciate your patience earlier. We are on schedule and expect a smooth flight." He paused just long enough to be felt. "I would like to remind everyone that safety on this aircraft includes respect, not comfort. Respect. Thank you." The intercom clicked off. Silence followed. Then a soft sound, like wind through leaves. Applause did not break out. It did not need to. Something else moved through the cabin instead. Recognition, discomfort, reflection. The woman stared at the back of the seat in front of her. Her phone buzzed again. She opened the message. "Who is the veteran?" it read. "Tell me his name." She did not reply. In 1D, the man opened his eyes. He felt the plane carrying him forward, not just through air, but toward something unresolved. He had lived long enough to know that moments like this did not end cleanly. They split. They echoed. Somewhere below, roads crossed and uncrossed. People made choices they would not remember until they did. He folded his hands over the safety card and waited. The descent began without warning, a subtle tilt that pressed the past forward. The man in 1D felt it in his chest before the captain's voice returned. His breath shortened. Memory did that. It ignored altitude and time. Denise stopped at his row again, quieter now, as if the cabin itself were listening. "We'll be on the ground in about 20 minutes, she said. "Airport operations asked that we taxi to a remote gate." He nodded. "For the statements, and for privacy," she added. She hesitated. "Are you sure you're okay with this?" He looked out the window. The city spread beneath them in soft greys and steel blues, the river cutting a calm line through it all. "I didn't come to be invisible," he said. "I came to do a job. If this is part of it, so be it." She swallowed and moved on. Across the aisle, the woman stiffened as the announcement filtered back to her. Remote gate meant cameras. It meant time. It meant no rushing through a terminal where names dissolved into crowds. She leaned toward her phone again. The screen glowed. She typed again. "His name," she wrote. I need his name. The reply came slower this time. Why? Because the captain saluted him, she wrote. Because everyone watched. Because I'm not wrong. 3 dots pulsed, then stopped, then returned. Give me a minute. The man in the navy blazer pocketed his phone and leaned back. He had seen enough. He did not feel victorious. He felt older. The older couple clasped hands again as the wheels touched down the sound, a low, forgiving thud. The plane rolled. The city rose to meet them. The captain brought the aircraft in, smooth and straight hands, steady mind elsewhere. He taxied past the terminal to a quieter place where service trucks waited like witnesses. When the engines shut down, the sudden quiet rang. "Remain seated," the intercom said. "We'll be disembarking shortly." The aisle did not fill. People stayed where they were, an unspoken agreement holding them. Denise and Claire stood near the front shoulders, squared. The officers boarded again, less stiff now, hats in hand. "Sir," the older officer said to the man in 1D, "we'll start with you if that's all right." "It is," he said. They spoke softly away from the woman's earshot. Names, times, words repeated back to ensure accuracy. The man's voice never wavered. He described movements, distances, tones. He did not describe feelings. He never did. When they turned to the woman, the temperature changed. She spoke quickly, then slower, then quickly again. Her words tripped over one another. She repeated phrases she had used before. I felt threatened. I was uncomfortable. I know what I saw. The older officer listened. He asked for specifics. She bristled. He asked again. She answered, but her certainty thinned with each detail demanded. The captain waited near the cockpit, arms folded, watching the exchange without intervening. He had learned when to step forward and when to let truth do its work. Denise finished her notes and looked up. "We also have video," she said. The woman's head snapped around. "Video?" Denise nodded toward the navy blazer. "Multiple angles." The woman's phone buzzed. She glanced down, heart ticking faster. The message opened itself. "His name is Samuel Reed." The cabin seemed to lean in. Her fingers hovered. "Who?" The reply came unadorned. "The man you accused." She stared at the screen. The name unlocked something she had sealed away because it did not serve her. Her husband had spoken it once years ago in the dark after a fundraiser when the wine had loosened him. He had said it with a reverence that annoyed her. She had not asked questions. Her mouth went dry. She looked up at the man in 1D, at Samuel Reed. The name fit him like a uniform he no longer wore. The older officer cleared his throat. "Ma'am," he said, "based on what we've observed and recorded, there is no cause to detain Mr. Reed." She laughed, thin and sharp. "Of course there isn't. There may be cause he continued to review your conduct." Her laugh stopped. "Review?" "For disorderly conduct," he said, "and for making a false report." The words landed with weight. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her gaze flicked to the captain, to Denise, to the phones, The room no longer bent toward her. "I want to speak to my husband," she said. "You may," the officer said. "After we finish." She slumped back into her seat, breath shallow. When she lifted her eyes again, Samuel Reed was watching her. Not with anger, with something worse. Recognition. She looked away. Disembarkation began slowly. First class emptied without comment. People nodded to Samuel as they passed. Some said thank you. Some said nothing at all. He accepted both. At the bottom of the jet bridge, a man in a dark suit, weighted badge clipped to his belt. "Airport operations." He spoke with the captain in low tones, then approached Samuel. "Mr. Reed," he said, extending a hand. "I'm Mark Halverson. We'd like to arrange transport for you." Samuel shook his hand. "I'm fine," he said. "I have a ride." Halverson hesitated. "If you need anything, I won't," Samuel said kindly. "But thank you." The woman emerged last, flanked by the younger officer. Cameras caught her face as she passed, the practiced composure gone replaced by something raw and defensive. She lifted a hand too late. Outside, the air was cooler. The city breathed. Samuel stood for a moment, letting the ground steady him. The captain joined him, jacket slung over one arm. "I should have done it sooner," the captain said. Samuel looked at him. "You did it when it mattered." The captain nodded, eyes bright. "I meant the call," he said. "Years ago." Samuel smiled, small and tired. "We all have calls we didn't make," he said. They stood in silence, two men bound by a past that refused to stay past. A car idled nearby, driver waiting. From the terminal doors, the woman watched them. Her phone vibrated in her hand. She answered this time. "What did you do?" her husband's voice demanded. "I told the truth," she said, though it sounded strange to her ears. There was a pause. "You told your truth," he said. "And now you will live with it." She closed her eyes. Samuel picked up his bag and moved toward the car. Before he got in, he turned back just once and looked at the terminal. At the people. At the glass, reflecting 1,000 small stories. He lifted 2 fingers to the brim of his cap, a gesture so casual it could be missed. Then he got in, and the car pulled away, carrying him toward the work he had agreed to do, toward a promise older than comfort, older than apology, leaving behind a cabin that would not forget the moment it learned the difference between fear and respect. The car moved through the city with the patience of someone who knew where it was going. Samuel Reed watched the streets slide past brick and glass, and people bent under their own thoughts. His driver did not speak. He appreciated that. Silence was not empty to him. It was a place. They crossed the river, and the buildings changed. Older money. Hospitals that smelled like polish and disinfectant, not fear. The car turned into a driveway, lined with bare trees, and stopped beneath a canopy that softened the rain into a hush. The driver stepped out, opened the door. "We're here, sir." Samuel nodded and took his bag. The weight in his shoulder reminded him to move carefully. He did. Inside the lobby breathed low voices and distant beeps, the sound of work being done quietly. A woman at the desk looked up, eyes kind, but tired. "Mr. Reed," she said, already standing. "They're expecting you." He followed her down a corridor that narrowed the world to light and shadow. The walls held framed photographs of donors and recipients' names, etched small dates even smaller, lives intersecting and then moving on. The woman stopped at a door and turned. "Dr. Feldman will be with you shortly." "If you need anything, I'm fine," Samuel said. He always was until he wasn't. The room was spare, a chair, a bed, equipment waiting patiently. He set his bag down and sat hands on his knees, breathing measured. He thought of the flight, of the salute, of the woman's face when the name landed. He had not enjoyed that moment. He had not hated it either. It had simply been inevitable. A knock came soft. A man in his late 40s entered, hair thinning, eyes sharp. "Samuel Reed," he said, extending a hand. "I'm David Feldman." They shook. Feldman gestured to the chair opposite. "We'll review the procedure again," he said. "You've done this before." Samuel smiled faintly. "Not like this." Feldman nodded. "You're cleared," he said. "Your vitals look good. Given your age, we'll proceed with peripheral stem cell collection as discussed. It's safer. Longer, but safer." "I trust you," Samuel said. Feldman hesitated, then spoke carefully. "There's something else. The family has asked to meet you." Samuel's jaw tightened. He had expected this. "No," he said. Feldman raised a hand. "I told them it was your decision. It remains so," Samuel said. Another knock interrupted them. Feldman turned toward the door. Irritation flickering. It opened anyway. The woman from the plane stood there. She looked smaller in this room. Her hair was no longer perfect. Her coat hung open, buttons forgotten. Her eyes were red, not from tears alone, but from something breaking that had been held too long. Feldman sighed. "Mrs. Hale," I said. "It's all right," Samuel said. He stood slowly. "You can give us a minute." Feldman hesitated, then nodded. "1 minute," he said, and stepped out, closing the door softly. The woman did not cross the threshold at first. She held the doorframe like it might slip away. "I didn't know it was you," she said. Samuel did not respond. She stepped in, careful now, as if the floor might crack. "My husband told me," she said. "After the plane. He told me who you were, what you did." Samuel met her eyes. "What do you want?" he asked. Her breath hitched. "To apologize." He waited. "I was wrong," she said, words tumbling. "About everything. I saw a shape and filled it with fear. I used words I should never have used. I tried to hurt you because I felt threatened by what I didn't understand." Samuel listened. He did not soften. "I can't take it back," she continued. "I know that. But I need you to know that I see you now." "Seeing is not the same as understanding," Samuel said. She flinched, then nodded. "I know. I don't expect forgiveness." He glanced at the bed, at the equipment. "Why are you here?" he asked again. Her voice dropped. "Because my son is waiting," she said. "Because you are the only match." There it was, the truth stripped of theater. Samuel exhaled slowly. "Your son has nothing to do with what happened on that plane," he said. "Do not put him between us." Tears spilled, then unchecked. She wiped them away with the heel of her hand, a gesture so unpolished it startled them both. "I won't," she said. "I promise." He studied her face. He looked for calculation. He found fear, not the kind that looks outward for enemies, the kind that looks inward for blame. "Sit," he said. She sat perching on the edge of the chair, hands clenched. "My husband is on his way," she said. "He wanted to come himself." Samuel nodded. "That is his right." A knock came again. Feldman's voice slipped through the door. "Time," he said gently. Samuel turned back to the woman. "This does not change what I will do," he said. "But it changes what you should." She looked up, hope flaring. "You'll still—" "Yes," he said. "For him." She sobbed, then shoulders shaking. The sound raw and unguarded. Samuel did not touch her. He did not need to. The room held them both. When Feldman returned, he found them composed, distance restored. "We're ready," he said. The procedure room was brighter, colder. Machines hummed. Nurses moved with quiet efficiency. Samuel lay back and closed his eyes as the IV slid in. He breathed through the discomfort, counting, grounding himself in the rhythm. Pain, he knew. It was honest. The woman stood near the wall, arms wrapped around herself. She watched his face, searching for signs. He gave her none. Hours passed. Time stretched and folded. Feldman checked numbers, nodded to nurses. "He's responding well," he said. "Textbook." Samuel smiled without opening his eyes. "I was trained," he murmured. Near the end, the door opened, and a man stepped in, tall silver at the temples, suit rumpled like it had been slept in. He stopped when he saw Samuel, something unguarded breaking across his face. "Sam," he said, voice rough. Samuel opened his eyes. Recognition settled. "Ethan," he said, "you look older." Ethan Hale laughed, a sound edged with relief and guilt. "So do you," he said. He stepped closer, then stopped himself. "I'm sorry." Samuel closed his eyes again. "Save it," he said. "Use it." Ethan swallowed. He turned to the woman, his wife, and she looked back, something new passing between them. Not absolution, accountability. The machine beeped softly as the last numbers fell into place. Feldman smiled. "We're done," he said. Samuel opened his eyes and stared at the ceiling. He felt hollowed out and full at the same time. The nurses moved him gently, settling him into recovery. He drifted, then returned. When he woke fully, the room was quieter. The woman was gone. Ethan sat in the chair, hands folded, eyes wet. "He's stable," Ethan said. "They say the numbers look good." Samuel nodded. "Good." Ethan hesitated. "There's something else," he said. "About the plane." Samuel looked at him. "Let it go," he said. Ethan shook his head. "I can't," he said. "Not anymore." Samuel studied him. He saw a man at a threshold. He had seen that look before. "Then choose carefully," he said. Outside, the city moved on, unaware of the quiet exchange inside the hospital walls. Somewhere else, decisions were being made that would reach back toward that cabin in the sky. The story was not finished. It had only shifted rooms. The first sound Samuel Reed noticed was not pain. It was quiet. A deep, steady quiet that settled into his bones like fall. Recovery rooms always did that to him. They pulled the world inward until only breath and thought remained. Light filtered through half-closed blinds. The ceiling above him was unfamiliar, but the smell was the same everywhere. Clean, clinical, honest. He shifted slightly and felt the dull ache spread, controlled, contained. Manageable. A nurse noticed his eyes open and smiled without showing teeth. "Welcome back," she said. "You did well." Samuel nodded once. Compliments made him uneasy. "How long?" "Almost 5 hours," she said. "Your numbers look strong." She checked his vitals with practiced efficiency, then paused. "You have visitors," she added. "One is cleared. The other is persistent." Samuel already knew who that was. "Give me a minute," he said. The nurse nodded and stepped out. Samuel lay there and stared at his hands. The scars looked sharper under hospital lights, the skin pale against the old lines of heat and pressure. He flexed his fingers slowly. They obeyed. Good. He closed his eyes and exhaled. A knock came restrained this time. The door opened, and Ethan Hale stepped in alone. He did not look like the man who commanded boardrooms and private jets. His tie was gone. His jacket hung over one arm like an afterthought. There were deep lines at the corners of his mouth that had not been there on the plane. "Hey," Ethan said quietly. Samuel did not answer at first. He waited for the moment to settle to see what shape it would take. "You shouldn't be here," he said finally. Ethan nodded. "I know. You have a son down the hall." "I just saw him," Ethan said. His voice broke on the word saw. He cleared his throat. "They say the transplant took. Early signs are good." Samuel absorbed that in silence. He let himself feel the weight of it. Not relief. Responsibility easing. "Good," he said. Ethan shifted closer to the bed, then stopped. He had learned something in the last 24 hours, though he could not yet name it. "I owe you more than I can repay," he said. Samuel turned his head slightly. "That's not how this works." Ethan nodded again, faster this time. "I know. That's what scares me." Samuel studied him. Ethan Hale had always been ambitious, even as a young man. Sharp, restless. He had survived the war and learned the wrong lessons from it at first. Samuel had watched that happen, had warned him once. He wondered now if the warning had landed late, but not too late. "You came to say something," Samuel said. "Say it." Ethan swallowed. "I filed a formal complaint with the airline." Samuel's brow creased. "Against whom?" "My wife," Ethan said. The word carried weight, and against myself. Silence filled the room again, thicker this time. "You did what Samuel said." Ethan's eyes held steady. "I asked them to open a full review of the incident, of our influence, of how often discomfort has been treated as danger when the wrong person feels it." Samuel exhaled slowly. "That will not be kind to you." "It shouldn't be," Ethan said. "I let it happen. I benefited from it." Samuel looked away toward the window, where the city moved without regard for their reckoning. "Why now?" he asked. Ethan followed his gaze. "Because my son almost died," he said. "And because the man who saved him was almost dragged off a plane because of who he is. And because my silence helped build the room where that could happen." Samuel closed his eyes. He had waited a long time to hear words like that, spoken without defense. "Words are easy," he said. "I know," Ethan said. "That's why I'm starting with actions." A beat passed, then another. "What about her?" Samuel asked. Ethan did not pretend to misunderstand. "She's in the waiting room," he said. "She's not handling it well." "That is not my concern," Samuel said. Ethan nodded. "I know." Another knock interrupted them. The nurse returned, followed by the woman. She looked smaller than she had in the procedure room, smaller than she had on the plane. Her shoulders curved inward, now not with performance, but with something heavy she could not set down. She stopped when she saw Ethan's surprise flickering. "You said you'd wait," she said. "I did," Ethan replied. "I'm done waiting." Samuel watched them both. This was not his war. He would not fight it. The woman turned to him. Her voice trembled, but she held it steady. "They told me the transplant is working," she said. Samuel nodded. "I heard." She stepped closer, then stopped herself, hands clenched. "Thank you," she said. The words were plain. No ornaments, no bargaining. He accepted them with a small incline of his head. "You're welcome." She hesitated. "I'm not here to ask for forgiveness," she said. "I don't think that's mine to ask for yet." "Correct," Samuel said. Her jaw tightened, but she did not argue. "I am here to tell you I will testify," she said. "If the airline opens an investigation, if there's a hearing, I will tell them exactly what I did and why." Ethan turned to her, startled. "You don't have to." "Yes," she said. "I do." Samuel regarded her carefully. This was not remorse polished for effect. This was fear redirected inward, and that mattered. "Understand something," he said. "This is not about me." "I know," she said quickly. Then softer, "I think I'm starting to understand who it is about." Samuel did not respond. He did not need to. The nurse cleared her throat gently. "Mr. Reed needs rest." Ethan nodded and stepped back. The woman lingered, then turned and left without another word. The door closed behind her with a sound like finality. Ethan stood there, hands empty. "I'll walk you out," he said to the nurse, then looked back at Samuel. "I won't disappear this time." Samuel met his eyes. "Make sure of that," he said. When they were gone, the room returned to quiet. Samuel lay back and let the exhaustion settle. He had given more than cells. He had reopened something he had buried deep and called it door. He did not regret it. Regret was for choices not made. Later, much later, when the sky outside had darkened and the city lights flickered on, the captain appeared at the door. He did not wear his uniform now, just a jacket and a familiar weight of presence. "Hey," he said. Samuel smiled, faint but real. "You look lost." The captain chuckled softly. "I've been pacing this hallway for an hour," he admitted. "Didn't know if you wanted company." Samuel gestured to the chair. "Sit." They sat in silence for a while, two men older than the rooms they occupied. Finally, the captain spoke. "They're talking about making it public," he said. "The incident, the review." Samuel closed his eyes. "They always do." "You okay with that?" the captain asked. Samuel considered. "Truth does not ask permission," he said. "It shows up when it's ready." The captain nodded. "I wish I had saluted you sooner," he said, again quieter. Samuel opened his eyes. "You did it when it counted," he said. "The rest is noise." Outside the hospital, cameras waited. Statements were drafted. Careers shifted. Somewhere, a young man slept with new cells, building a future his parents had almost lost. Samuel Reed rested, knowing the story was moving beyond him now, into rooms where decisions would echo. He had done his part. The rest belonged to those who had looked away for too long and finally learned that silence, too, leaves a record. Morning came slowly, as if the city itself needed time to decide what it would admit into daylight. Samuel Reed woke to the soft click of a door and the muted sound of footsteps retreating down the hall. The ache in his back had shifted from sharp to dull, a reminder rather than a warning. He breathed, tested the weight of the room, and sat up. On the chair by the window lay his jacket folded with care. Someone had brushed it clean. He did not need to ask who. The nurse returned with a paper cup of water and a look that carried more than routine. "You're being discharged this afternoon," she said. "Doctor's orders. No heroics." Samuel smiled faintly. "I retired from heroics a long time ago." She hesitated, then lowered her voice. "There are people downstairs," she said. "Press." He nodded. He had felt them before he saw them. Attention had a pressure to it like weather moving in. "Tell them I won't speak," he said. She nodded, relief flickering. "I'll tell them." After she left, Samuel stood and moved slowly, careful with each step. He dressed without hurry. When he slid his arms into the jacket, the weight settled him. Some things you carried, not because they were light, but because they were yours. His phone vibrated on the bedside table, a single message from a number he recognized without saving. "Captain Mitchell. They're waiting outside. I can run interference," Samuel typed back. "Don't. Let them wait." He stepped into the hallway as orderlies passed with carts and charts, the machinery of care moving forward without pause. At the elevator, Ethan Hale stood alone, hands clasped behind his back, like a man waiting for judgment. "You're up early," Samuel said. Ethan turned, startled, then composed himself. "I didn't sleep," he admitted. "Good," Samuel said. "You shouldn't." Ethan absorbed that without flinching. "The board meets at noon," he said. The airline released a statement at dawn. They acknowledged the incident. Full cooperation. "And you?" Samuel asked. "I resigned from the advisory board," Ethan said. "Effective immediately." Samuel studied him. There was no pride there. No self-pity. Just consequence. "That will cost you." Ethan nodded. "It should." They walked toward the elevator together. As the doors closed, Ethan spoke again. "My wife asked me to tell you she's leaving town for a while," he said. "She needs distance from the noise." "That's her work," Samuel said. The elevator opened to the lobby. The sound hit them first. Voices layered over one another. The flash of cameras, the low hum of anticipation. Security had formed a loose corridor, but it was the people who defined the space, leaning forward, hungry for something they could name. Samuel stepped out. The noise dipped, not gone, but redirected. A microphone rose. "Mr. Reed," someone called. "Sir, just one question." He kept walking. Another voice cut in. "Do you forgive her?" He stopped. The lobby stilled, breath held. Ethan felt it beside him, the risk of the moment. Samuel turned slowly. He looked at the cluster of faces, the lenses pointed like small, unblinking eyes. "Forgiveness," he said, voice even, "is not a performance." He let the words sit. Then he turned and walked on. The questions resumed louder now, frustrated. Security tightened. The doors slid open, and the morning air rushed in, cold and clean. Outside, the captain waited by the curb, hands in his pockets, jaw set. Samuel approached. "You didn't have to," he said. The captain shrugged. "I wanted to." They clasped hands, brief and firm. Ethan stopped a step back, giving space. "I'll be in touch," he said to Samuel. Samuel nodded. "Make sure you are." The car pulled away, leaving the lobby and its hunger behind. As they moved through the city, the captain drove without speaking. Finally, he broke the silence. "They're calling it a reckoning," he said. "For the airline." "They like big words," Samuel replied. "They're grounding a flight this afternoon," the captain continued. "Training day. Mandatory. Bias recognition. Authority review." Samuel watched a bus pass windows fogged with breath. "That's a start," he said. "It will anger some people," the captain said. "It should," Samuel replied. They crossed the river again, the hospital receding into glass and distance. The captain glanced at him. "Where to?" he asked. Samuel considered. "The old neighborhood," he said. "I want a coffee that tastes like regret." The captain laughed, a sound edged with relief. "I know a place." They parked on a side street where brick held stories and time had slowed. Inside the diner, the air smelled of grease and burnt toast, and something sweeter beneath it all. A bell rang as they entered. Heads turned. Recognition moved fast now. A waitress approached, late 50s eyes sharp. She looked at Samuel, then at the captain, then back. "You the one from the plane," she said. "Not accusing, just curious." Samuel nodded. "I was there." She poured coffee without asking. "It was wrong," she said. "What they did." Samuel wrapped his hands around the mug. "It was common," he said. "That's worse." She nodded, lips pressed thin. "It is," she said, and moved on. They sat by the window, steam curling. The captain stirred sugar he did not need. "You think it changes anything?" he asked. Samuel sipped. The coffee was terrible. "Perfect." "It changes some things," he said. "Not all. Never all." Outside, a television in the window across the street replayed footage from the lobby. A caption scrolled. "Airline launches review." After passenger incident. Faces blurred. Words simplified. The captain watched it, then looked away. "They'll forget it," he said. "Some will." Samuel replied. Some won't. His phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. He opened it. A single line. Thank you for staying. He did not reply. They finished their coffee. As they stood to leave, the waitress called out. Hey, she said. For what it's worth. Samuel paused. My brother flew cargo, she said. Came back quiet. Didn't talk much. You remind me of him. Samuel nodded once. Then you know, he said. Outside, the day had fully arrived. Traffic moved. People hurried. Somewhere, meetings were being held. Statements refined. Apologies drafted. As they walked back to the car, the captain glanced at Samuel. You heading back out? He asked. Soon, Samuel said. There's a place that needs fixing. The captain smiled. There always is. They drove on, leaving behind the diner, the cameras, the hospital. The story followed them, carried by wires and voices and screens. But Samuel Reed did not turn back. He had learned long ago that justice was not a destination. It was a direction. And for the first time in a long while, the world had shifted just enough to face it. The place that needed fixing was not on any map that would help you find it. Samuel Reed arrived before noon, the sun flattening the town into pale lines and long shadows. The bus station sat between a pawn shop and a closed movie theater, with a marquee that still promised a show from years ago. The paint peeled in honest strips. The doors sighed when they opened. Inside, the air smelled like coffee that had given up and disinfectant that tried too hard. A television bolted high on the wall played the news with the sound off. A caption crawled beneath a frozen frame of the hospital lobby. Samuel did not look up. He bought a ticket with cash, folded the receipt, and sat where the window glare could not reach his eyes. Across from him, a young man hunched over a backpack that had seen better roads. He wore fatigue pants and a hoodie, pulled tight. Fingers worrying a frayed zipper. His leg bounced without stopping. Every few seconds he scanned the room, as if expecting something to fall out of the ceiling. He was early 20s, maybe younger, skin pale with the sick shine of not sleeping enough. His jaw tightened when the doors opened, relaxed when they closed. Hypervigilance had its own clock. Samuel watched without staring. He had learned how to see without demanding anything back. A woman approached the counter and argued about a refund. Her voice rose and fell. The clerk kept his hands flat eyes down. The argument burned itself out. It always did. The young man stood abruptly and moved toward the exit, then stopped, trapped by his own momentum. He rubbed his face with both hands and sat again, breath shallow. Samuel shifted in his seat, slow enough not to startle. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, hands visible. You waiting for something? Samuel asked, voice low. The young man flinched, then forced himself to look. Bus, he said. His eyes darted to the doors. Delayed. Everything is, Samuel said. The young man huffed a laugh that died quickly. You from around here? Not anymore, Samuel said. The young man nodded, as if that made sense. Silence stretched. Samuel let it. The television flickered. The caption changed. Airline expands review after public pressure. The young man's leg bounced faster. You ever feel like you're supposed to be somewhere else? he asked, words tumbling out before he could stop them. Like you missed the turn, and now you're just stuck. Samuel considered. Every day, he said. The young man studied him, searching for sarcasm. Finding none, he relaxed a fraction. Name's Luke, he said. Samuel. Samuel replied. Luke swallowed. You military? He asked, nodding towards the jacket. Samuel nodded once. Was. Luke's shoulders sagged. Me too, he said. I mean, I was supposed to be. Enlisted. Then they sent me home. Samuel did not ask why. The why was usually the point that hurt. What brings you here? He asked instead. Luke shrugged. Trying to get back, he said. They tell you there's help. Then you go looking, and it's just offices and lines and forms, and people who don't look up. Samuel watched the bounce of Luke's knee slow, then start again. Help is a direction, he said, not a place. Luke frowned. What does that mean? It means you keep walking, Samuel said. Even when the road is ugly. Luke scoffed. Easy for you to say. Samuel nodded. Yes. The doors opened. A gust of cold air cut through the room. 2 men entered, loud laughing. Luke's shoulders tightened. His hand drifted toward the backpack strap. Samuel shifted, blocking the line of sight without touching him. They're not here for you, Samuel said quietly. Luke breathed shaky. I know, he said. I know, Samuel repeated. The television cut to a different angle. A reporter gestured toward a graphic. Luke glanced up and froze. The image showed a man leaving a hospital, face turned away. The caption named him. Samuel Reed. Luke's eyes widened. That's you, he said. Samuel did not deny it. That was on my phone, Luke said. The plane thing. Samuel waited. You didn't yell, Luke said. Everyone else does. Samuel shrugged. Yelling is loud, he said. It rarely listens. Luke shook his head. Something like wonder creeping in. They did you wrong. Yes, Samuel said. Luke's jaw tightened. You gonna sue? No, Samuel said. Luke blinked. Why not? Samuel looked at the peeling paint, the scuffed floor, the people waiting for rides that might never come. Because the work is here, he said. The bus arrival chimed flat and uncelebratory. Luke stood, then hesitated. Where you headed? He asked. Samuel pointed toward the far wall where a flyer hung crooked. Veterans Outreach meeting today. There, he said. Luke followed his gaze. He swallowed. They're gonna make me talk, he asked, only if you want to. Samuel said. Luke nodded slowly. Can I walk with you? He asked. Samuel stood. Yes. They stepped outside together. The air bit clean. The street stretched ahead, cracked but passable. As they walked, Luke talked in bursts like a dam leaking. About nights that wouldn't end. About pills that took the edge and then took more. About the feeling that he had failed at something everyone else seemed to manage. Samuel listened. He did not interrupt. He did not fix. He walked. At the community center, the door was open. Folding chairs circled a scarred table. Coffee steamed in a dented urn. A woman with silver hair and a posture that brooked no nonsense greeted them. "Sign in," she said, then looked at Samuel and stopped. "You're late," she added softer. "Traffic," Samuel said. She snorted. "Sit." The room filled slowly. Men and women of different ages, different wars, the same quiet weight. When it was Samuel's turn to speak, he did not stand. He stayed seated, hands on his knees, voice carrying without effort. "I won't tell you it gets easy," he said. "It gets honest." "That's better." Eyes lifted. Some hardened, some softened. Luke listened like the words were water. After people lingered, names exchanged, numbers written on scraps of paper, the woman with silver hair pressed a card into Luke's hand. "Tuesday," she said. "Don't be late." Luke nodded, stunned. He turned to Samuel. "You coming back?" he asked. Samuel smiled small. "I'll be around," he said. Outside, dusk settled. Samuel walked alone now, the day loosening its grip. His phone vibrated. A message from the captain. Airline announced changes. Real ones. Samuel typed back. "Good." He stopped at the corner and looked back at the community center light spilling through the windows. He thought of the plane, the salute, the cameras. He thought of Luke's bouncing knee slowing. He thought of the work that did not make headlines. Samuel turned and walked on, knowing the story would keep chasing spectacle. He would keep choosing the quieter rooms. The hearing room smelled like old wood and new microphones, a place designed to sound neutral while deciding who would be believed. Samuel Reed sat at the long table with a paper cup of water untouched in front of him. He wore the same jacket. He always did. The room filled behind him with murmurs that swelled and ebbed like a tide that never quite reached shore. At the far end, a panel of executives arranged their notes with careful hands. The airline's general counsel leaned toward the chairwoman and whispered something that made her nod once, and not again. Cameras lined the back wall lenses, patient hungry. A clock ticked loud enough to matter. Samuel did not look at the cameras. He watched the light on the wall where a high window cut the afternoon into clean angles. He had learned to read rooms by what they tried to hide. This one wanted control. A man in a tailored suit cleared his throat and spoke into the microphone. "Mr. Reed, thank you for appearing today." Samuel inclined his head. "I didn't come for thanks." The chairwoman lifted her gaze. She was in her early 60s, hair gray and precise, the kind of authority that had learned to survive storms by becoming one. "We're here to understand what happened on Flight 217, she said. "From your perspective?" Samuel leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. The wood was cool. "From my perspective," he said, "a woman felt afraid. The system treated that fear as evidence." The rest followed. The general counsel frowned. "You're simplifying." "Yes," Samuel said. "Because complexity is often used to avoid responsibility." A ripple moved through the room. The chairwoman raised a hand, and it settled. "Describe the moment you felt unsafe," she said. Samuel shook his head. "I didn't," he said. "That's the point." A microphone crackled as a man 2 seats down adjusted it. "Are you saying you were never concerned for your safety?" he asked. "I am always concerned," Samuel replied. I am not surprised. The questioner hesitated. By what? By how quickly discomfort becomes a weapon, Samuel said, and by how eager institutions are to swing it. The chairwoman made a note. Do you believe the crew acted improperly? She asked. Samuel thought of Claire's shaking hands, Denise's steady voice, the captain's salute. No, he said. I believe they acted under pressure. Pressure from whom, the counsel asked. Samuel met his eyes. From people who have learned that their fear is louder than facts, he said, and from policies that do not protect the quiet. A murmur rose again. The chairwoman leaned back, studying him. You understand the airline's responsibility to all passengers, she said. I understand responsibility, Samuel replied. I lived it. The doors at the back opened softly. A woman entered, escorted by an aide. The room's temperature shifted. She took a seat in the front row, hands clasped, face pale, but set. The woman from the plane. The counsel glanced toward her, then back to Samuel. Mrs. Hale has agreed to testify, he said. Samuel nodded. That is her choice. The chairwoman gestured. Mrs. Hale. The woman stood. Her voice wavered at first, then steadied. I believed I was in danger, she said. I was wrong. I used language that escalated a situation I did not understand. I relied on my status. I am accountable for that. The room held its breath. Cameras leaned in. The chairwoman asked, Do you believe the airline treated you differently because of your influence? The woman closed her eyes briefly. Yes, she said. And I let them. The counsel shifted. Do you allege discrimination? He asked Samuel. Samuel did not look at the woman. He did not look at the panel. He looked at the clock. I allege predictability, he said. I allege patterns that repeat because they work for someone. The chairwoman tapped her pen. What would you have us do? She asked. Samuel considered. Change who decides, he said. Not what you say after. A low sound moved through the room. The chairwoman's jaw tightened. Be specific. Give flight crews authority without fear of reprisal, Samuel said. Separate safety from status. Train for bias as rigorously as you train for fire. The counsel interjected. And what of accountability? He asked. Samuel's gaze returned to him. Begin with those who benefit, he said. Silence followed, thick and uncomfortable. The chairwoman looked past the table towards the back of the room, where a man had arrived without announcement and taken a seat no one else would have dared. He was tall, late 60s, hair white, posture unyielding. He did not wear a badge. He did not need one. The chairwoman cleared her throat. We will take a brief recess, she said. The gavel tapped once. The room exhaled. Conversations erupted, then hushed, as the man at the back stood. He walked forward with the ease of someone accustomed to moving through resistance. Samuel watched him approach recognition, stirring not from memory, but from instinct. Power left a trace. Mr. Reed, the man said, extending a hand. I'm Charles Whitman. Samuel shook his hand. The grip was firm, practiced. I know who you are, Samuel said. Whitman smiled thinly. I imagine you do. The counsel hurried over, face tight. "Charles," he said, "we're in recess." "I know," Whitman replied. "That's why I'm here." He turned to Samuel. "I founded this airline," he said. "I've been listening." Samuel waited. "You spoke about patterns," Whitman continued. "About predictability." "You're right." The counsel shifted again. "This isn't the time." "It is," Whitman said without looking at him. The chairwoman approached, composed but wary. "Charles," she said, "this panel." "I respect the panel," Whitman said. "I don't respect outcomes designed to protect comfort." The room stilled. Cameras clicked. Whitman faced Samuel fully. "I want you to help us change this," he said. Samuel raised an eyebrow. "How?" Whitman's voice carried steady and unembellished. "By advising me," he said. "Directly." A wave moved through the room. The counsel's mouth opened, then closed. Samuel considered the offer. He thought of Luke, of the diner, of the quieter rooms. "I don't want a title," he said. Whitman nodded. "Good," he said. "Titles confuse people." "And I won't be a shield," Samuel added. "I won't stand in front while nothing moves behind me." Whitman's smile widened just enough to show respect. "I don't need a shield," he said. "I need a mirror." The chairwoman looked between them. "Charles," she said. Carefully. "This would be unconventional." Whitman shrugged. "So was flying once." He turned back to Samuel. "Think about it," he said. "No press release, no parade, just work." Samuel looked at the water cup, still untouched. He picked it up and drank slow and deliberate. "I'll think," he said. Whitman nodded. He turned to the room. "Recess over," he said, and took his seat at the panel's center without asking. The gavel tapped again, sharper this time. The hearing resumed, but the air had changed. Words landed differently. Questions shifted. The story bent toward a place it had not been allowed to go before. As Samuel returned to his chair, the woman from the plane met his eyes. She did not speak. She did not smile. She nodded once. Samuel nodded back. Outside evening settled in lights blinking awake across the city. Somewhere, a young man waited for a bus. Somewhere else, a diner closed its doors. The hearing room pressed forward, no longer able to pretend it was just about a flight. Samuel sat still, knowing the work was moving closer to rooms where decisions were made without witnesses. He had been invited inside. He had not accepted. Not yet. The clock ticked. The invitation did not leave Samuel Reed when the hearing ended. It followed him into the hallway, down the marble steps, out into the street, where the evening had cooled just enough to make people pull their coats tighter. He walked without looking back, past the cameras and the voices calling his name, until the noise dulled into something he could ignore. The driver waited where he always did, engine idling, eyes forward. Samuel got in and closed the door. The city moved again, indifferent, eternal. "You don't look undecided," the driver said after a while. Samuel watched the lights blur. "I am," he said. The driver nodded. He had learned not to fill silence. That night, Samuel did not sleep. He sat at the small table in the apartment he borrowed when he was in town, the kind of place that came furnished with nothing you could get attached to. Papers lay spread before him. Transcripts. Policy drafts. A thin folder Whitman's assistant had slid into his hand without ceremony. Inside were summaries, not promises. Proposed changes. Internal memos that admitted more than they intended. Samuel read slowly. He circled words. He crossed out others. He saw the shape of the system laid bare, not evil, not malicious, just obedient to the wrong incentives. Fear rewarded. Silence promoted. Discomfort escalated. Near midnight, his phone buzzed. Captain Mitchell. Still awake, Samuel typed back. Yes. They spoke without greetings. They want you inside, the captain said. People are already speculating. Samuel rubbed his eyes. Speculation is cheap. You don't trust Whitman, the captain said. I trust patterns, Samuel replied. Men with power ask for mirrors when they're ready to change the room or the lighting. Sometimes both. The captain exhaled. If you say no, they'll move on. Yes, Samuel said. And if you say yes, the captain continued, you'll be blamed for whatever doesn't change. Samuel smiled without humor. That's familiar. They hung up. Samuel returned to the papers. At the bottom of one page in small print, he found a line that mattered. Pilot discretion preserved. Crew authority protected from retaliatory review. It was conditional hedged, but it existed. He closed the folder and stood. At the window, the city stretched alive and unrepentant. He thought of Luke's bouncing knee, of the woman's nod in the hearing room, of the quiet rooms where change was not announced, only practiced. The next morning he walked. The outreach center was open early. The silver-haired woman poured coffee and raised an eyebrow when she saw him. You're back, she said. For a minute, Samuel replied. Luke sat at the table, eyes clearer than before, fingers steady on a paper cup. He looked up, startled. Hey, he said. Hey, Samuel replied. They talked about nothing for a while, about buses that ran late, about the weather that refused to decide what season it was. When the room filled, Samuel stood to leave. You gonna disappear again? Luke asked. Samuel shook his head. I'll be where I can do the most good, he said. Luke nodded, trying to understand. That's somewhere big, he said. Sometimes, Samuel replied. Sometimes it's right here. Outside his phone rang. Whitman's number. Samuel let it ring twice, then answered. Charles, he said. I won't pretend I'm patient, Whitman replied. But I am serious. So am I, Samuel said. Have you decided? Whitman asked. Yes, Samuel said. There was a pause, sharp with anticipation, and Whitman prompted. I will advise, Samuel said. On conditions. Whitman exhaled. Name them. No title, Samuel said. No press. I speak to crews before boards. I sit in training rooms, not corner offices. And when I say stop, you stop. Whitman did not answer immediately. Samuel could hear papers shift, a chair creak. Finally. You're asking for leverage without cover, Whitman said. I'm asking for truth without armor, Samuel replied. Another pause. Done, Whitman said. Samuel ended the call and stood still for a moment, letting the decision settle. It did not feel triumphant. It felt heavy, useful. The first meeting was not in a boardroom. It was in a hangar that smelled of oil and cold metal. Pilots and crew stood in a loose semicircle, arms crossed, wary. Samuel did not introduce himself. He did not need to. "I won't tell you to be brave," he said. "I will tell you how to survive doing the right thing." Questions came cautious at first, then sharper. What if a passenger complains? What if a supervisor pushes back? What if the fear is loud? Samuel answered with stories, not slogans, with specifics, with the names of moments when silence cost more than speaking. Some nodded. Some resisted. He did not argue. He stayed. Days turned into weeks. Policies shifted in drafts that never saw daylight. Training changed tone. Crew reports were reviewed by people who had stood where they stood. Not all at once. Not enough. But different. The story outside did what stories do. It simplified. It crowned villains and heroes. Samuel avoided it. He rode buses. He sat in diners. He listened. One afternoon, as he left a training session, a woman stopped him. She wore a uniform that had been pressed too many times. Her eyes were tired. "Thank you," she said. For what had Samuel asked? For saying the thing we're not allowed to say, she replied. Out loud. He nodded. "Say it anyway," he said. That night he received a message from Luke. "First therapy session today. Didn't run. Thanks." Samuel did not reply. He put the phone down and let the quiet do its work. At the end of the month, Whitman called again. "It's harder than I thought," he admitted. "Yes," Samuel said. "And necessary," Whitman added. "Yes," Samuel said again. When the call ended, Samuel sat by the window and watched the city breathe. He thought of the plane, the salute, the hearing. He thought of how power had tried to name him and how he had refused to be named. The work would not end cleanly. It never did. But it had direction now. Samuel closed his eyes and rested, knowing the next room would ask more of him, and that he would answer, not because he was asked, but because he could. The work settled into Samuel Reed, the way weather settles into land, not with drama, but with persistence. Months passed. Policies hardened into practice. Training rooms became places where voices carried farther than they used to, where silence no longer passed as professionalism. He traveled light a bag, the jacket a notebook filled with names and moments. He did not give speeches. He listened. He stayed long enough for people to stop performing and start telling the truth. The airline changed without banners. Flight crews learned that authority could be exercised without apology and without cruelty. Complaints were weighed against facts, not feelings alone. Reports stopped disappearing into email chains and began landing on desks where consequences lived. Not every shift held, not every promise kept. But enough did to matter. Samuel returned often to the quieter rooms, the outreach center, the diner, the bus station that smelled like old coffee and resolve. Luke's knee bounced less. His eyes held longer. He started helping new arrivals find chairs and names and a place to sit that did not feel like judgment. When he smiled now, It reached his shoulders. When he stumbled, he did not vanish. He learned how to ask for help without turning it into a confession. The woman from the plane kept her word. She testified when asked. She did not dress it up. She named what she had done and why it had been easy. She withdrew from rooms that rewarded certainty without curiosity. She did not become a symbol. She became quieter. Her son grew stronger. He sent a note once written in careful block letters, thanking a man he had never met for a future he had not expected. Samuel read it once and put it away. Captain Mitchell flew routes he loved again. He kept a folded list in his pocket, handwritten of moments when he would step out of the cockpit if he had to. He never said it out loud, but the list gave him a steadiness he had missed. He saluted only when it meant something. Whitman stayed mostly out of sight. When he showed up, he listened more than he spoke. He learned the difference between endorsement and permission. The mirror he had asked for did not flatter him. He kept it anyway. The story outside did what stories do. It crowned. It simplified. It moved on. Samuel did not chase it. He understood now that change survives best when it is boring enough to be permanent. One late afternoon, he stood at a small airport, watching a plane taxi in the sun, lowering the world into gold. He thought of that first cabin, the held breath, the moment when fear tried to name him and failed. He thought of how close the room had come to choosing comfort over truth. He thought of how easily it could again. A family walked past him, grandparents and a child holding a paper airplane. The child ran, stopped, ran again. The grandparents laughed, the sound unguarded. Samuel felt something ease. He boarded his own flight without ceremony. A crew member nodded to him not with recognition, but with respect that had learned to mind its own business. He took his seat and buckled in. The engines deepened. The doors closed. The plane moved. As the city fell away, Samuel closed his eyes. He did not need to watch the clouds. He had learned where he was going. The work would continue. It would resist. It would ask for patience and cost. It would demand presence more than praise. He would give it what he could when he could, and leave the rest to people who had found their voices and decided to use them. When the captain's voice came over the intercom, it spoke of weather and altitude and time. Nothing more. That was enough. The plane climbed. The cabin settled. A life went on quieter and sturdier for having been interrupted once by truth and carried forward by it. If this story moved you, take a moment to like and subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments with 3 words that carry weight. Dignity over fear